Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Fierce in the Field. I have another very exciting guest in studio today. This is Genna Rose.
Hi.
If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, just tell them what you're doing now, why you're in Chicago.
Of course. So, as you know, my name is Genna. I'm currently the in-arena host for the Chicago Blackhawks. I do a couple of other hosting opportunities around the great state of Illinois as well as Wisconsin. So we'll see the Milwaukee Bucks, or I'll be doing things with Athletes Unlimited Professional Softball. And along with some of that MC work, I also do some sports broadcasting. So I'll put the headset on, either do some play-by-play analyst or even sideline. So it's just a really good hodgepodge of things, everything sports here in the Midwest.
Yeah, I love it. And you're doing the Chicago Red Stars this season too, right?
I am, yes,
So
which
fun.
is so exciting.
Yeah.
And it's just really fun uplifting and celebrating women's sports. I
Yes.
think as a group, we're riding this phenomenal wave of people being so interested in what's happening. And there are so many stellar athletes and stories to be told. So it's just really exciting to cheer on, amazing women who are doing incredible things.
Yeah, I went to the Chicago Red Stars, Chicago Fire doubleheader, and
nice.
it was like the energy for the Stars was so insane and crazy, and I was like, this is awesome that we get this much show for women's soccer right now because we need it, and it's so important.
It is. And what's so funny, too, is I know I just kind of gave a little introduction to some of the things that I do, but it's really hard reminding myself of the verbiage and lingo for different sports. So, for example, for soccer, it's a match day, not a game day.
Not a game day.
Just those small things. It's funny because I have to rework. Hold on. I'm not at the rink. I'm not at the court. So it is fun. But to your point, I love that soccer's just been catching fire in the U.S.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that all started with the Ted Lasso business, right, with the show. So it's just cool for a sport that has such a grip on the entire world that the U.S. is on board and celebrating.
You have to train your mind a little bit too when you're covering so many sports. That's a talent. Good. I'm impressed, honestly.
Thank you. I was gonna say, knock on wood, I haven't done anything wrong yet, but
yes. Okay. Well, I want to kind of jump into how you really found your love for sports and reporting on sports. So gonna go back all the way back to childhood. I know. Was there anything that really early on sparked your interest? Did you play sports growing up?
Yeah, I certainly did. So I started out playing softball when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And I think of all the sports I tried, that's the one that just had a hold on me.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I grew up in a diehard hockey family. My two older brothers, they're 9 and 10 years older than me. So true 90s babies. But I was definitely the little girl, the only girl in the family.
So cute. I love it.
So it was fun. I was always being dragged to the arena. But as a kid, I couldn't stand it, right? Because that's what I was doing on weekends, weeknights. So,
and you're sitting there, you're not playing. Yes.
Yeah. So it's funny that I was so involved and always there. If you go through old scrapbooks in our house, it's funny because my mom would put little word bubbles on some of the photos, and it would always be about going to the arena. And I swear I'm crying in every single one because I was a toddler.
Yes.
Yeah. And my dad's and she wrote in the word bubbles oh, don't cry, Genna. The arena is your home. We're here. And it's just so funny. So I've always been involved in it and always seen it. But I think being in love with softball and then watching baseball, those were those sports that really just were fun to me. It was great to play. So I think when I got older, I got out of that phase of not liking it since I didn't have to go to the rink anymore. And then I could become a true fan and I could go to games and watch on TV. So being from Detroit, Michigan, I know that's something I keep under wraps at times, being in Chicago, but Original Six franchise as well when you think about the two areas. So just having a rich sports history background and places that I grew up and what I was cheering for, it's always fun.
I love it. And you're analyzing for softball right now, right?
I am, yeah. It's been a crazy wave. I think this is the first year that aspect has really took off in my career. And it's funny because, there's so much that we could talk about with my starting, but essentially when I graduated college, I graduated in 2020 from Lawrence Tech. So, that is COVID, right? We couldn't walk. We were always just clapping at the TV when we had a screen.
Oh my gosh. Did you have the Zoom graduation or?
I did.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was always a little difficult, but right when I graduated, I got a job with Sports Illustrated, and that's when they were doing individual team coverage.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I was doing some stuff for their Big Ten content for football, interviewing the publishers. So that was online. So that was really fun. And same with the Detroit Lions. So from there, that just kind of grew into me becoming a publisher on my own and covering the Tigers. And I think at the time they only had 9 baseball teams. So incorporating Major League Baseball was a little new. But being able to go to the ballpark and being able to meet people like Dan Dickerson and those who have made Tigers baseball just so great over the years, they were the ones that were even saying, you know, we're tired of this being a boys club. We need more women to put the headset on. And it's something that I never initially considered, but playing college softball and it being a sport that I know so well, it's been fun to actually be the narrator and be in control of the pace of the game, the storytelling, and finding ways to break down and analyze plays that are creative because, you know, sometimes I don't want to say it's the same thing that's happening on the field, but you have to be creative for how you call a ground ball or same to analyze what's happening in the outfield, the way that balls are flying off the barrels. So it's just been a fun challenge. This has just been the year that it's really taken off, which is fun. So, yeah, I appreciate you asking.
Of course, no, I saw that and I was like, that is so cool because I personally haven't tried that yet, but it's something that I would want to be interested in, but it's kind of scary because it's so different and you're preparing differently than if you were to sideline or host. So what's been the biggest like challenge for you just adjusting and kind of making that shift?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that was hard for me was having the confidence to do it because you have to put yourself out there. And I love that you mentioned that when it comes to being in the booth versus sideline, you do prepare differently and there's such different roles. But I've noticed for me, I put a lot of pressure on myself when I'm in the span of sideline just because you may only have 5 minutes total of TV time, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be perfect as everything you say. You want to execute properly and be concise when you're doing those interviews. But when it comes to being play-by-play or analyst, you get to acclimate to the game and you get to set the tone for what this experience will be. And I think in that sense, it's been very rewarding and you get a little more comfortable, acclimated. So those are probably the 2 biggest differences. But just when it comes to your prep, and I mean, when you're going in to do play-by-play or analyst work, you have your monitor with you. Some actually have a program called Flight Scope or something similar where you can actually see the path of the balls that's coming through the zone from the pitcher, which is really fun.
That's really cool.
At times it can tell you what's being thrown just based on what's happening statistically.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I come in and I have my boards and I have my laptop and then I have stats that I'm putting on the wall. And then, of course, you have the game. So I'm learning how to look at 7 different things at once.
Yeah.
And that's probably the hardest thing is finding your format. And there are people who can prep for a game in maybe 2 hours. I don't know for you when you do sideline how fast you can kind of get those calls done and find what you need for the game. But it's just like those fundamental things that are, it takes time to find how you want to execute and be prepared. So those are kind of the things that have been interesting in that aspect, but it's just so fun.
I love it. And have you been able to work with other women who have done commentary before? Or are you the only women in the booth, or how has that been for you?
So essentially for me, I'm normally, especially when I'm in the play-by-play role, only woman in the booth. When I've been doing analyst work, I've never had a female play-by-play. So I'm really excited for the day that happens. But I've been doing the Michigan High School Softball State Finals for the last 4 years now. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it this past year. But the last 2, I've had Kenzie Long with me. So she was a shortstop for Michigan State. Typically, they hosted at her old field. So it's fun to learn the game from her perspective. And she's also the director of player development for Turn and 2, which is a very high-end travel league. So she preps a lot of players for what the college experience will be when it comes to just bringing them back to the fundamentals. So to learn the game through her eyes from somebody who played at such an elite level, it's really fun. And not only does that help me for play-by-play because I get to know her, I learn how to set her up. What can I ask her that I know that she is so fluent in and can break down easily? But then it helps me when I go fill that analyst role because, you know, I did play college softball, but you think about from her, she was also a slapper. She was a shortstop and I'm an outfielder and I, you know, was a pole hitter. So it's just fun to learn the game from different folks.
That's awesome. Okay, let's go back to your senior in high school. You're going through the college recruitment process. You're an athlete. Walk me back to that moment. Put yourself back in those shoes. How were you feeling during that?
Yeah, I felt pretty confident. I will say I was somebody who started the recruitment process pretty late. Partially it was because I was dealing with a shoulder injury. So we knew that it was coming crunch time to where I needed to decide if I wanted to play college ball, that I would have to get surgery. And that's always difficult for the process of getting back to your feet. But essentially, Lawrence Tech actually reached out and they came to a few of my games. And they're predominantly an engineering and architecture school. They had a newer media program, But I knew for me that I wanted to be in media, but I didn't know how.
Yes.
And there are just so many different avenues that you can take. For example, I love that you set this all up yourself, right? You know the production, you know how to edit, you're so well-rounded, and you can be on camera.
Yes, yeah.
So for me, that's what I loved about media. I'm a media comm major. I just thought, I can do anything I want with this. I can go into marketing, graphic design. So it felt very safe, again, close to home, and I got to receive a scholarship to continue to play the sport that I love. So confident in that sense, but at the same time, after that shoulder surgery, when I actually started playing, that was difficult for the recovery process.
Yeah.
But all in all, it was a really fun experience, and being with friends who were experiencing the same thing.
Yeah.
And that was actually the first ever softball team that they had. I was part of the inaugural program.
Really?
Yeah.
How cool. That is awesome.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
So it's fun because everybody was a freshman. I think we had 1 or 2 sophomores and then a grad student. So there was a lot that we had to learn on our own when it came to just developing as leaders, or maybe just getting acclimated to balancing conditioning, practices, games. So it was just a phenomenal group to do that with. And I just have so many fun memories that I like to cherish.
What's like your favorite memory that you remember? Because you kind of had to be each other's role models because you didn't have those veteran players on the team. What's your favorite memory of like spending time with that team and your coaches and your family's cheering you on?
It's tough because there are so many, but I think it was all about the team bonding. Like we'd play, I don't know if you ever played Mafia where you'd sit in a circle and do those games. So it's just how much fun that we had and how easily that we clicked in the beginning. And I remember our first ever game we won, and it was just really cool because there were different expectations set upon us, not necessarily by us in our program, but I think, oh, okay, it's an NAIA school. This is their first ever team. What's this going to look like? And we just had a really phenomenal season. And I think, that can be a common misconception for the NAIA. Our baseball team, they played U of M and they won. So it's one of those things where you just never know what the competition is. And we also just worked so hard. So it was fun to just see everybody click so easily and continue to grow.
Yeah. What about women's softball today? Are you still a fan? Do you follow the team still?
Yes. So I don't necessarily check in too much on Lawrence Tech. I do text the coach every now and again just to check in. Or the coach who recruited me, she left after my freshman year. But it's always fun to stay in touch.
So fun.
But part of what I do as well is I'm in my 4th season with Athletes Unlimited professional softball. So I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Athletes Unlimited, but it's a league that uplifts women's professional sports. So they have a few of them under their umbrella, but entering that MC role where for most of my MC roles I get to also do player interviews, whether pre or post game. So to be involved is just so electric, and I really encourage people to come to games. I mean, for AUSL, they've launched a new league and format within Athletes Unlimited, and it is a little confusing at first when you come in, but this is very traditional style softball. For what we'll see later on when they bring in their 2nd season, they do an innovative scoring system. So I could be preaching to the choir here a little bit, but essentially it just kind of makes something that is so traditional and classic a little more exciting, right? Because you're rooting for those team points, you're rooting for individual points, and then that's how you determine winners. So it's fun to see the game take a new step. And at the same time, I just think with the Women's College World Series, we're seeing the $1 million arm, right? People are loving softball, and it's something that you can't compare any other sport to. Obviously, there's similarities with baseball, but the speed, the strategy, it's so different at the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So that is all amazing. How did you, because you were in the comm school, you knew you wanted to do something in media, and you were also an athlete at the same time. Did that kind of form your interest in sports broadcasting specifically, or how did you take those steps to pursue what you're doing now?
I think what inspired me the most was actually most of my classmates, because I was still in that period of like my freshman year. I didn't really know what to do, but what was really exciting is we had Yellow Flag Productions on campus, and this is a company that has a state champ sports network, which is absolutely huge in Michigan. When I was a high school player, you'd always go back and watch the highlights and see, did I make it on? Because it would be on what was Fox Sports Detroit at the time.
Yes.
So that was a really big deal, and they loved working with Lawrence Tech and bringing students in. So I was working with them, which is just, I've learned so much. I love to stay in touch. I actually went back and did they had the Michigan High School All-Star Game for softball for the first time ever. So I worked with them to do play-by-play there with Kenzie, who I was talking about before. But backtracking, it was just so fun to have the opportunity to learn how to voice highlights, to edit tape, to go get film, and of course, host. So there was just a lot of things that having those conversations with them and what my career would look like that really inspired me. And then a lot of my classmates were amazing on camera. Like,
love.
For my friends that were on, I was definitely like bottom of the class. I looked nervous. Sometimes I joked that I looked like I was going to cry when I was on, but I liked it because it was a challenge, and that was something where I was a very shy kid growing up.
Yeah.
So it was a part of myself that I got to learn and develop, and it was really cool having that opportunity. So being with them, they started a club called Blue Devil Broadcasting.
Yeah.
So we did a lot on our own outside of the classroom or outside of our internship with state champs. And I think that's what really just cultivated my interest and love for it, and being like, hey, you know what? I played sports. I can do this. Let's
do
figure
this.
out
I know
this
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sometimes, but
yeah. What was like your aha moment in college where you kind of realized you were like, oh, this is what I want to do?
I think it was the belief that others had in me.
Okay.
So, for example, one of my mentors, his name is Lauren Plant. He was one of the main hosts on the show for State Champs.
Yeah.
And again, I was not the best on camera when it came to the other interns that were with me, but they saw how hard that I worked when it came to learning how to edit. I was so interested in different aspects of what they did.
Yeah.
And every time I would come into the office, I would stop and say hello to every single person. So I wanted to make sure, because A, I just love talking with them and saying hello, but B, it's just interesting to seeing what they're doing, or hey, you're editing this. I've never been too familiar with Premiere Pro before. Can you show me how you do that?
Yeah.
So the belief that they had in me, because there was a host that ended up leaving. She went to work for a local news station, and they asked me to come and fill that. And so I think because they knew how hard of a worker that I was, they wanted to give me that opportunity. And I think they also saw potential in me as well.
Yeah.
So while it was a little rocky the first episodes that I did, it just felt so amazing to have a support system that wanted to put me in that position and give me those opportunities and give me feedback. And I think that just goes to show, you know, your work ethic does play a major role in how you treat people when it comes to what you can do with your career.
Yeah, it is so important, one, to have those relationships with people in the workplace, especially when you're a student still, because it's important to ask questions, and people notice if you're engaged in asking questions. Like, that is almost like your ticket to success, because you're keeping those relationships, and you got asked back to fill in that hosting role. Like, that's amazing.
Right. And it's funny too, because, you know, I kind of take a look, because I'll have different college students reach out to me, and it's so exciting that they have opportunities with Big Ten Plus, or there's a lot happening. They go to D1 schools, which I'm sure you're very familiar with those opportunities. So I think people are surprised to know that I came from a smaller private institution. But really, it just afforded me so many opportunities to try different things. And it's also an example of don't let where you are hold you back from maybe what the norm is, or what the typical path could be for people in your career. So
what do you think was like your biggest lesson, your biggest takeaway from those moments? You're at a smaller school, you're learning how to advocate for yourself and, you know, tell people what you want to do. What's your biggest lesson that you think you still carry with you today?
I think the biggest lesson that I carry with me today is the fact that I went above and beyond the classroom. And I know, again, for those of you who may be going, again, to a Big Ten school, or you have those opportunities, there's a lot that you have to do outside of the classroom and what's available to you with internships to really see the difference. I mean, at times when you're doing things over and over again, it can be like night and day when you see yourself on camera, right?
Oh, yeah.
But for me, you know, I was very uncomfortable with putting myself out there, or you know, I would take time away from my classes to go do something, record at a local field, and maybe just write up a hit, right? Pretend that I'm talking about the Tigers and I'm at, you know, some little dinky field.
I do that now, so I get it.
Which is fantastic. But even, you know, I had an opportunity to speak with somebody from one of the major sports teams back in Detroit, and they're like, you know, it's crazy what you did when you were leaving college or when you were in school, because some college students don't take the time to do that. And my friend and I at the time, also a graduate of Lawrence Tech, Jason Ross Jr., we actually started a show called the Motor City Roundup.
Oh, awesome.
And it was really cool. So I will say, for us to have the opportunity to do that, we were privileged in a sense that we could live at home. We didn't have to worry about groceries. And with our internships, we could pay for our own equipment. And I know that is not the case for everybody. So we do recognize that we were lucky in that sense. But we were working for the United Shore Professional Baseball League. So those games, 4 teams playing out of one ballpark, was happening Wednesday through Sunday. On top of that, too, we had the Motor City Roundup. So we were credentialed to go cover the Detroit Tigers. So we were going into the ballpark. We were being a part of those interviews that were happening over Zoom, because again, this is kind of that funky COVID time. So he and I just put our heart and soul into it, you know, working on motion graphics, editing, and State Champs is awesome to let us use their studio when we were doing studio stuff. So it's just very rewarding to see that we were going above and beyond in what we could do and opportunities we were afforded. And it was just a phenomenal learning experience. And it's cool to see not only where he is now, but where I am now here in Chicago.
I was going to say, do you still keep in touch with him? Do you still keep in touch with other people that you met during your time in college through the program?
Yeah, we'll talk every now and again. It's funny because everybody's so busy, right?
Yes,
and I think that's one of the things I don't want to say I advise on, but when you choose this career path, it's very hard to have that social and work-life balance.
Right, yes.
It's easy when you're colleagues or you're doing stuff at the same time, but I feel like I'm going out like every night because, some of the games are ending at, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I'm driving back home, so I'm like, dang, it's hard to go out, with some friends after that because you're giving it your all when you're
wiped.
On
you're
your
like,
show.
I need it. Yep. Oh, I get it. Trust me. What about, so it's COVID when you graduated college, which was, I can't even imagine that. I was a sophomore in high school, so
that's
a little
good,
different.
Though.
It was good.
Yeah,
I had a little
take you from graduation or anything.
Yes, exactly. Very, very lucky. But you were trying to land your first gig out of college. Talk to me about that process, what that was like, especially during COVID. And what that job was.
Yeah, so definitely it was a little scary because so much was changing on the sports scene. At this time, I was actually an intern for Detroit Sports Media Association where they would give credentials to college students to come in and get reps. So I was doing some stuff at Little Caesars Arena, again with Jason covering the Red Wings. And I remember just getting the news because that was around March, I think, when COVID was really starting to hit that year. So that was when, fans couldn't come, bit of a hiatus. Right. So it was very scary because how can we find jobs in the sports world when there aren't necessarily sports going on?
Yeah.
So those were, there were a lot of question marks around that element to it. But I think what I did so well was I was continuously putting myself online. And once again, I was not great on camera. It took a lot of self-convincing to do it because I think people who are in this industry also are never satisfied, which is also, it's a good thing.
That's
but
hard.
At the same time, you're really hard on yourself, right? Yeah. So it was hard for me to make those posts because I'm like, I know I'm doing this wrong. I can't believe I said it like this. Yeah. Why did I do my hair like that? Even just down to
that is just such a struggle, I feel like. And it never really goes away. You can keep working on it, but there's always going to be something that's like, I should have done that differently, or I should have said this.
Yeah, so you can definitely relate to it in that sense, but it was difficult for me. But I think that it put my name on the map a little bit when it came to Detroit sports because that's how I ended up getting my first opportunity with Sports Illustrated. Was the publisher of the Lions reached out to me because he saw me. And it's funny because a guy I was dating at the time, would always say like, oh, jobs fall out of the sky for you. But it's one of those things it's like, well, preparation met opportunity in that moment. I was putting myself out there. I was getting as many reps as I could. I was doing so much that when an opportunity came along, it found me. Yeah. So I always try to tell people that it's not luck. It's your skill, the work that you put in, and then a door being able to open.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It was just exciting to have those conversations, and that publisher taught me a lot too when it came to editing or demanding in a sense that this is what a professional video should look like. Let's try to work on your skills in Premiere Pro to match that. So I got the editing down and then the hosting and interviewing portion too.
Yay. You kind of were learning some new skills. What was the biggest challenge or what was the most nerve-wracking part of kind of walking into that first professional out of college job for the first time?
Gosh, I think it was pretty difficult to put on the mask that I am a confident professional. I know imposter syndrome is always an issue, but it's like I was a senior in college, right? And again, it's so hectic that it was COVID. So it was one of those things where I'm like, I can't believe they think that I'm good enough to be doing this. Like, that's crazy. Because again, I was very self-critical. So I think just putting on that professionalism and confidence was a bit of an issue at first, but it's something that I've grown into over the years. So, but I would say that's probably one of the things that stuck out when I think about that time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, I could just imagine. I'm like trying to get myself prepared to look for jobs at the end of the year, but I still have one more year of school left, luckily. But it's definitely nerve-wracking, but I'm glad that you did a good job and that you liked it. Walk me through the moment with the Blackhawks. You're looking for a job. You got that gig. You got that opportunity. How much did that mean to you? I mean, you grew up a hockey fan. You grew up watching hockey.
It was tremendous. So essentially how that started, I know I mentioned earlier that I worked for the United Shore Professional Baseball League.
Okay.
And what's funny just about my time there was that I was doing sideline and having the opportunity to interview players. And it was one of my favorite summers. I mean, you think about baseball and how demanding a season is. If you can handle something that's at the independent professional level or minor league level, you can handle anything, right?
Yeah.
So that was when actually one of the games our play-by-play couldn't make it. And I was too scared to do play-by-play at the time, and I reached out to 5 different people and no one could do it. So I finally did it.
Yeah.
And I remember I posted the link with a photo on Twitter, and I thought to myself, well, this is the worst I'll ever be at play-by-play, so might as well just get it out of the way now. And it received so much love. It was great, even though I said some silly things or, was trying to
it was your first time doing it.
Yeah.
Give yourself some grace,
But anyways, I still stay in touch with Jeremy Otto. So he was the play-by-play at the time. So I learned a lot from him. We'd have a lot of conversations and he was so supportive. And something that I told him was that I always wanted to do in arena hosting. I grew up with Carly Johnson and Daniela Bruce. They were instrumental in the show for the Detroit Red Wings and also amazing mentors and friends that I look up to.
Yeah.
So that's something that he knew, and he subscribed to a specific service that kind of let you know different professional jobs that were open, and it was open for the Chicago Blackhawks.
Amazing.
So he sent it to me. I got so excited, and I sent it out to a few of my friends who are also in this role because we always talked about how exciting it would be to just have the opportunity to audition. Just learn what that process is like, because it sounds so intimidating, especially for a job at a number 3 market, right? Mm-hmm. So it was probably 3 of us total, but we all came in with the expectation of we're going to have fun. This is going to be awesome. And then if one of us gets it, like, that's incredible. That's great. So my best friend, Lexi Ayala, she's also my maid of honor at my wedding coming up. She's in this industry, so I think you'd love to talk to her too.
Yes.
She's
my gosh, I'd love to.
Analyst, loves basketball. Yeah. And I remember we were practicing together on the train ride from Michigan to Chicago. We go to the United Center, and I've never been, so this thing is just massive.
My gosh.
It's one of the bigger barns in the league, so it was cool to see it in that moment when everything was still. You walk in, there's nobody
Nothing's
else
going
in there.
on. Yeah.
It's a bit dim. It just felt like a movie in my mind.
Yeah.
So I was very scared. I remember I just dressed business professional, and this is also in the time of masks. So I did the whole audition with a mask on. But they were really...
That is so interesting. Yeah.
And I think they even gave us the option of taking it off. I just think because of, obviously, like, we weren't in proximity with anybody, and they filmed it as well as it being on the... I'm pretty sure it was on the big board as well when we were doing it.
Oh, wow.
But it's funny because I remember afterwards I was like, I wish I took off my mask so they could, see me smile or how engaged I am. But it worked out.
Yes.
And that's a process too that I know I've had a few people ask me what it was like. And what they ended up doing was they sent us a script ahead of time.
Yeah.
And so I got to practice their games because I never did see the Blackhawks in-house show. I was very familiar with what Detroit was doing, which they have a top-tier show. They have amazing talent. So that prepared me in a sense. And I remember I called Carly and I asked her, what was it like when you auditioned for Detroit? And she was awesome in walking me through the steps of that.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it was just so exciting. And it's funny because I laughed about this with my director now. One of the games that we played is called BMO High-Low. So if you ever come to a Blackhawks game, you'll see us put a card on the screen of a player and their jersey number. And then the contestant has to guess if the next card is higher or lower. Okay. And that's how you win gift cards. And that's how you win gift cards and everything. And so it was so funny because when I came in to do the audition, I don't think I said a single player's name. Like when I was doing that. And it's funny because I look back and I'm like, Genna, how did you not even do that? Like we'll have junior hosts come with us and they'll know to do that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But I think it goes to show how much I've grown and progressed. Yeah. And, things that seem simple, sometimes you just don't think about it when you're very nervous, right? But it was great. They threw us a curveball with a game that we haven't heard of, and it's hard when it's sponsors you didn't know of, because I think at the time it was BMO Harris Bank, and I'm like, that's not a thing in Michigan. Right. That's more of a down here. So it was fun to have those opportunities, and took the train ride back, and I think it was a week later I got the call.
I love it. What does that mean to you as a little girl? Like young Genna, what do you think she would say if she knew that you landed that role?
She would think it would be so cool, first and foremost. But I think when I was young, like the jobs that I was interested in were paleontology, or I was interested in like agriculture. So they were things, very separate things, and very different from what I'm doing now. But I think she just would have been amazed that I had the confidence to go and get something like that and just have fun and be that person. Because like major advice that I always give to college students is that when you're applying to these roles or when you're going into the interview process, is think of the bigger picture. So for me, I know my goal in life and my mission is to build relationships, and the vehicle that I choose to do that through is sports broadcasting or MC work in general. And I think just kind of having that guideline as I go about my day or go about my work, that's something in the back of my mind where it's like, hey, you know, I might be having a hard day and I have to go from location to location to do different hits in a game. It's very busy. Yes. But remember that when you're walking to different places or a fan comes up and says hi to you, my goal is to A, make this the best game for them ever, but B, is to make those relationships because I've made so many friends being part of the Blackhawks and getting able to meet the fan base. And it's the same for the Milwaukee Bucks too. So, two phenomenal organizations and great fan bases. And it's funny because you have to cater to different audiences because for NBA and NHL, totally separate.
Totally different. And you're the in-arena host for the Bucks at the same time you're working for the Hawks, right? So, okay, I wanna like talk about that and how you handle both at the same time, because that's how did you first land that gig with the Bucks, and like where was that in terms of where you were with the Blackhawks?
So funny enough, I believe I finished my first season with the Blackhawks. I was getting ready for the second, and that's when Athletes Unlimited reached out to me. Somebody recommended me from our organization, and our show caller there, Kate. Hi, Kate. I love her so much. But she calls the shows for the Bucks. Okay. So I think it was, because we bought the house I live in Wisconsin. Please don't be mad, but our Chicago fans. But
no, you're still a valid Chicagoan. We appreciate it. Yes,
absolutely. I love Wisconsin so much. I can't imagine being anywhere else. But essentially, when we got the house there, that was maybe 2 years ago. Okay. So I was talking to Kate, and she's like, "Hey, so I hear you live in Wisconsin now," and I'm like, "Yes, we're Wisconsin twins. It's great." And she goes, you know, we might need another host for this upcoming season. Is that something that you would be interested in? And I'm like, no brainer, of course. So it was through her and knowing me and getting to work together and have fun for softball because it's a smaller crowd, right? And it's outdoors. And I mean, you're working in the heat. So, you know, like you can be a little more silly. Yeah. And I think being silly and not taking yourself seriously is something that is absolutely huge, not just in the industry and what we do, but also when it comes to cultivating an NBA show because they love their entertainment. You have their attention during every single timeout. Yes. Where I think when you're catering to an audience at the barn, like for hockey, it is a very high IQ crowd and you have to like earn their attention and be like, hey, come look at what we're doing. You have to be overly animated. You're projecting. So just some of those things are a little different when it comes to that, but that just laid the foundation and getting feedback from my show caller at AU to just, you know, be a better host. And that's translated so well when I do sports broadcasting. It helps me be a little more loose. I get to have fun. And there are things that just go hand in hand where initially I saw it as a stepping stone and I'm just like, I can't imagine my life without this. It's so much fun.
And I always say, I was literally just talking about it with Vanessa, our last guest on the show, but I was saying sometimes it's the fun stuff that you get to be a little bit silly, a little bit looser that actually helps you as a broadcaster because you're like, oh, I feel more like myself right now. I'm not as, sometimes for me, it's like I can be like so robotic, but then when I get to break out of my shell a little bit and do that fun entertainment stuff, that's what helps.
Oh, it definitely does. So again, I envisioned it as a stepping stone, but I can't imagine life without it. And I think that's just key. Don't take yourself too seriously. No. And that's what I love about what we do is that your skill set can go to so many different things. Like you're editing your own podcast, you're filming. Not a lot of people can do that who are also talent. So I love that you're so well-rounded and that just helps when it comes to, of course. Yeah. And that's what helps when it comes to finding opportunities. And diversifying income is also really huge. That's something that I love to talk about if people are reaching out. So for me, not only am I doing stuff in sports, but I'm also doing stuff in the corporate world, right? They need talent. So I'll work for a finance company and I'm doing stuff on camera. And it's really cool because I'm talking to CEOs. I'm working with a teleprompter and they curate every script to who they're sending it out to.
Oh, interesting.
And what they do is they'll take the video, they'll put it on an iPad and ship it to the business. So the CEO is opening it and they could do stuff for major brands like Kohl's, PetSmart. It's really cool. So I get to have those like one-sided conversations, but be a part of something that's so different because when I first came in, they were like, hey, we love you. We will say you are a little energetic. And that came from me doing so much in-arena hosting, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, so let's work on being a little more conversational because you're talking to people in business.
Okay.
And they don't need someone who's overly animated or like smiling
Right.
ear to ear. I am a hardcore smiler.
Yes.
It's weird when I have to take a photo and like not smile.
You have to be like all serious. It doesn't work.
I know, it's funny when I'll do photo shoots for like different merch and they're always like, hey, okay, let's just like relax the smile, you know, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
You're like, no, this is just me.
But it's fun because it translates to different things. Or when I first came into that role with the Chicago Blackhawks, they love my work and they're like, you know, you do sound like you're on a broadcast. Let's like work on like having fun, being energetic.
Yeah.
So being in those different places, it just helps me be better when I go into any other area, right?
Yeah. Stay well-rounded.
Yeah, and it's just like it keeps you from being burnt out and it lets you have so much fun. And even, you know, I'll do some acting or stuff or commercial work and I just get to be like myself, or I get to be a part of this role. So I always recommend that to folks because I know it's hard and sometimes you do have to go bartend or you have to host at a restaurant.
Yes,
or
that's what I'm doing literally tonight. So that's just how you do it. Yeah.
But I'd recommend this app. It's called Backstage.
Is it the casting app?
Yes.
I've had that for a little bit, but
Perfect.
Yeah, I have an account. I used to have like the membership and then I stopped, but I probably should get back into it.
Yeah, just because there's so many things, especially with us being in Chicago, but it's just helped me diversify and have fun. And I know I go on a few tangents when I talk, so I'm sorry that your initial question.
Hello? No, I love it.
It was back to balancing the Bucks and Blackhawks. So yes, the seasons do overlap. I want to say this season it was like a 7-game difference. So unfortunately I missed 7 Bucks home games when the Blackhawks season is taking place. But I mean, I swear it's just always a toss-up when the schedules come out what's going to happen. So only 2 seasons under my belt of doing both. But I remember there were a few weeks this year where like we would have 3 Blackhawks home games for that homestand. And then for NBA, they have the back-to-backs. So it could be like 5 games in a week, right? Or you're just go, go, go. And what I love about my job is that I don't feel like I'm working.
Yeah.
I get to have fun.
It's the best.
But I will say my body sometimes feels that way.
Okay.
Like I remember the first year I got really sick when I was doing it. And I know obviously stuff goes around, you know, the flu or you get a bad cough. But I think I wasn't really taking care of myself with what I was eating, how much I was resting, or even just drinking water. Sometimes I may have a little more iced coffee than I do.
Me too.
Water,
Mine's sitting over there. Yep.
Yeah, but I think I learned a lot and had a really awesome support system that helped guide me through that. So, you know, it comes with its own challenges, but I get to put on phenomenal shows for 2 amazing organizations that, again, you cater to different audiences. It's comparing apples to oranges. So I get to find different parts of who Genna is and get to be silly and have fun. And I also am just so grateful that I even have that reporting element to it. So when I do Blackhawks home games, if we win and Darren Pang isn't between the benches or we don't have an analyst on the ice, then I get to go do that role. So that'll be simulcasted on CHSN or WGN radio. And I'm trusted just in different moments when it comes to maybe needing an interview for maybe socials. Yeah. So it's just fun to be multifaceted and be able to help in different aspects too.
That is so amazing. I can't even imagine just being able to, you're multitasking and you're remembering so much information. How are you able to kind of balance like, okay, Bucks game today, Blackhawks game tomorrow, vice versa? How are you kind of handling all of that information at one? How are you preparing? How are you making sure that you're not bringing yourself out from your prep? Because I feel like it would be easy to get stressed, right?
Right. And I could be saying this phrase very long, but it's don't hunt the rabbit before you're in the woods. It's something along those lines. So I try my best to focus on what's in front of me. So if I have this game this day and another the next, I am all about that game that day when it comes to my prep, how I attack. Because if I even let myself start to think about the next day, that takes away what I'm doing. I'm not going to start thinking about a game I have the next night when I have something that I need to execute and do the day of. So that's just something that's kind of helped me, that phrase, because also if I'm doing a game and, for example, it's really hard to do a post-game interview when you're doing your own hits and you can't listen to the broadcast or necessarily watch the game. So when I've done interviews for the Bucks or Blackhawks, that's always been a little difficult because I pay attention as much as I can. But also, again, I'm in it to build relationships. relationship. So I want to make sure I'm engaging with fans, or I'm talking to people who are coming by and, being fun, because you're not allowed to have a bad day when you're in this entertainment position, which was something that was a little hard to get used to at first. But now, entering my 5th season, I'm doing pretty good.
Yes.
So that's always difficult. So that's why your prep is important.
Yes.
What documents that you have with you, like I'll have copies of game notes or stats entering, and also not being afraid to talk to my coworkers. Sometimes I'll go hang out with the beat writers and I'll ask, hey, what have you been seeing so far this game? Or if I have a minute coming out of the bathroom, I'll go on to X and see what fans and what they're tweeting. So I do what I can with the time that I'm allotted. And also, just talking to coworkers, or if John didn't have it hit when I was doing one, like, hey, I heard everybody was cheering. What was going on there? I just missed that. So I think sometimes people don't understand when you can't listen to the broadcast what they're saying, or you're not dedicated to that sideline role watching the entire game. It is very difficult.
Oh, yeah.
But that's where, you have your fundamentals down. And I think when you learn how to be a good broadcaster, you can do that for any sport if you're not necessarily accustomed to the ins and outs of it, right?
Yeah.
So how to ask good questions, try to stay away from the things of how does it feel, or what does that mean to you, which, sometimes you can argue that there is a time and a place because that's what fans expect.
Yeah.
But it's like, can you pull from an emotion rather than asking them how they feel? Or if this is something momentous in their career, what will you think of when you look back at this night? Just kind of trying to find ways to make it fun. And again, if it's a crazy, hectic day, it's not always going to come out the way that you planned it. No. But I think as long as you set that standard for yourself, it can pay dividends.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such good advice. Oh my gosh, I love that. What's like your number one? And you can give me like one from the Bucks, one from the Blackhawks, but do you have like a standout memory that was just tons of fun, a really good moment for you, a really good moment with your coworkers, for the team, something that really stands out to you?
Yes, and it's not a fun one, but the thing is I know that, with what your mission is and that you're exposing the next generation to people who are in this industry, it's important to talk about the teaching moments.
Yeah.
And it was my first ever interview with the Blackhawks, and I just want to let everyone know I was 23 when I got that job.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Which you are an adult, but it feels so young in the sense of what this career is and what you grow into. And so that was my first opportunity ever being with a, professional sports team. And essentially up to that point, I was doing a lot of the in-arena work, and they allowed me to do a post-game interview for the first time.
Okay.
And I was really excited, but I was so nervous because I knew that this was going to be on, NBC Sports Chicago at the time.
Yep.
Everyone's going to be watching. And also I had to wear a mask.
Yes.
So I go and I do the interview and I blank on the third question. And I think for most people, they thought it was like a mask thing, or that DeBrincat couldn't hear me when I was talking to him. And I just remember I sobbed like the whole car ride home. I was inconsolable because I had so many people who are in the industry tell me that if you have a major goof up like that, you're done. Like everyone's going to remember it. That's the advice that I've gotten. And also as someone who's very critical of myself, that's what I was told. And a lot of my peers felt the same way too, that you can't have a major mistake like forgetting what your third question would be for an interview, right? And it was so crazy because the next day I went into work and I was talking to PR and I apologized. They're like, you're fine.
Like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
And they continue to give me those opportunities.
Yeah.
And that just takes me back to what I was saying with state champs. I wasn't the best on camera, but they knew I was a hard worker and they wanted to give me that position. So that was a crew that already believed in me. Mm-hmm. And again, it was something that was so scary, but it's a memory that I always talk about because I want people to feel like, hey, if you do a job and the game doesn't go the way that you wanted, or you make a mistake that you thought you could never make on air, obviously, in the realm of that, you're not saying anything very rude or wrong.
Right.
But that you can recover from it. And when you have a good support system around you, they'll continue to give you opportunities.
Yeah.
Because in that year, so my first season with the Blackhawks, I did a hybrid role of where I was doing rink-side on NBC for select away games and also in arena hosting.
Gotcha.
So that was all baptism by fire.
Yeah.
Just learning what it was like to be on the team plane. You're going to the hotels, you're traveling, you're trying to balance that schedule. And on top of that, too, it's COVID era. So you can't just go into the dressing room and talk to players. You had to request them.
Right.
You're standing 6 to 12 feet apart and you only have a few minutes. And that's a tough scenario to be in, not only with the, I don't want to say lack of experience, because I did do some D1 sideline during my time at school.
Yeah.
But it's just a different realm.
Yeah.
And so I'm so proud of myself for the way that I handled it, because there's still things that I have on my demo reel from that time.
Yeah.
But it was just this insane world to get used to, and there were so many awesome people that helped me along the way.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And what a moment where it's so nerve-wracking when something like that happens, but the fact that you're able to pick yourself back up, lean on your coworkers, and no one's perfect at the end of the day.
Yes.
And I think we put so much pressure on ourselves, especially when we're younger. Like, I'm 21 and you were 23, and I put so much pressure on myself to like, oh, you need to sound like this person who's been doing it for 20 years, which is unrealistic.
Yeah, and that's what I love too. So John Hansen is my co-host for the Blackhawks, and I love him to death. He's one of my best friends. He's my financial advisor. He's my mentor. He's just everything, such a phenomenal person. But, you know, for a while I was just like looking at John, and I love to learn from him, but I'm like, he is so good. Yeah. But I have to remind myself and not compare myself, because it's like, John, you know, is 40 now. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I'm in my 20s. So it's one of those things where, like you said, it is hard to not play the comparison game, but you have to remember that it takes time. Yeah. And it's hard because people always ask for advice or what it is. And honestly, like, you just need the reps, and time is really going to solve a lot of things for you. So
yes, absolutely. Okay. I want to kind of go back to something you said. You talked about doing some on-camera work for a couple business companies and a little bit of freelance work, I'm assuming, a little bit of acting. Talk to me about those, like, outside of sports hobbies. I'm so curious now.
It is so fun because it just, you put yourself in a different world. And I mean, if I'm hosting a gala or a summit for people who are in business rather than like sports fans who want to have fun, it's a completely different mindset that you have to have, and also a different way that you need to execute or deliver your script or your talking points or how you conduct interviews. So one thing for me, again, I was a very shy kid, but I love challenges, and being on camera was something that was so hard for me. But now entering different aspects of being on camera talent and entering the corporate world, I'm learning a lot about myself, and I'm challenging myself to find that way to be Genna Rose, but to do that in this environment. Yeah. So it's something that honestly is just a lot of fun. I love doing a multitude of different things. Even for a period of time, I was editing the podcasts for the Chicago Blackhawks. And for a period of time, I was editing some of the highlight reels that were going on social media for the Milwaukee Bucks. And it's just so fun. I love to do different things. I want to continue to grow. And again, like, challenging myself has always been huge. So entering those different phases, or, you know, even with the acting, it was so funny. I did one for it's called Serenity Springs. It's this really cute area that you can go to in Indiana that they're like cabin type hotels. And I still talk to some of the people that work there. Like, they're just super fun, and they're also diehard Blackhawks fans. But I had to have a fake boyfriend during the whole shoot. Oh my gosh. So it's funny because I have a fiance. So he and I are like joking about it, but I'm like, this is kind of weird having to like hold somebody else's hand. And it was uncomfortable, but it's like, you know, we both had significant others, and I got to work on my acting skills. Yes. Right? Yes. You know, maybe my fiance is a little too concerned with how well I played that role, but like, not actually.
You're too good of an actor. That's so funny.
We only like held hands. We were good.
That's hilarious.
But it's fun just to challenge yourself and be in those new environments. So then I have the skill set. So when I am looking at different things to do, because, you know, my winters are pretty stacked, but in the summer it's a little open, and it's, that'd be so cool to film this or be a part of different things. I just love it.
And you're getting married soon, which is so exciting. Yes. Where is your venue? Where are you getting married?
Oh boy. So we're getting married at Blue Dress Barn. Okay. It is so lovely. It's in Benton Harbor, Michigan. As a Michigander, Southwest, not too far from the lake. So we are just over the moon. Our countdown is like, we're definitely less than 2 months away.
Oh my gosh.
I think so awesome. I've exited the phase of being so stressed out to being really excited. Yeah. But I know the stressed out phase is going to come back again, because it's hard, because so my fiance, Jordan, he works in home remodeling. Okay. So he's busy on weekdays, and sometimes he's not getting home until 10 o'clock at night, which we can talk about relationships in this industry too, because I think that's something that women also struggle with trying to find time, or even just, you know, like, who's good for you when you have this demanding schedule. But that's what worked out so well with us. And it's hard to schedule calls because, again, with softball taking off on the broadcast side of things for me, which is so great, I love it. Yes. It's been hard to schedule stuff with vendors or taking time to go taste test, do these different things. So it's been a fun experience. Yeah. Very stressful, but when it's the love of your life and you can't wait, I'm just excited.
It's going to be so worth it. It's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Of course. I want to kind of take another shift here and kind of start talking about being a woman in this industry, because that's really important, and that's kind of what I'm trying to highlight on this podcast, because I think it's important to talk about.
Absolutely.
What has been, we'll start off a little bit broad, the biggest challenge for you that you've noticed all throughout your career, especially being an athlete in college, just being a woman in the sports industry and kind of handling yourself in an industry that's pretty male dominated?
I think what was the most difficult about it is there are some subconscious ideas maybe that fans have that when they see a woman on screen, they may think different things. And one of the hardest adjustments for me was also with my family, that they had those expectations too. So for example, I remember I was really trying to do some more social media content because for me, I don't like putting myself out there in that sense for like TikTok trends or things outside of sports. But I thought, you know, I really want to grow my brand and I need to be comfortable with this.
Right.
And I got a text, and the text was essentially, hey, you know, that dress you were wearing, like your legs didn't look good in that. I think you need to go like to the gym more and tone it up.
This was someone you knew that texted you?
In my family. Okay. And it felt devastating because I was trying to put myself out there and try something different. And again, it came from a place of love. It came from a place of they know that people view me in a certain way, and they, you know, subconsciously view women on TV in the same sense. But I sent a very long text back. And, you know, it was something that kept me from doing social media content for a while. But I think it was just kind of trying to reshape the way that family views that, because again, it came from a place of love and wanting to help me and support me. But we don't need to view women that way or put them in a box based on what they look like. So I think that was the hardest adjustment for me in that sense. But I think at the same time, being a woman in sports, as I was continuing to get jobs, you know, I'd make a tweet just saying, you know, I got this new opportunity, really excited. And then people are like, what's your credibility? Have you even covered this sport before? And it's like, well, actually I have, yes. But people constantly questioning no matter what area I'm in.
You're going to prepare for it and you're going to do a great job as if you've been covering the sport for 10 years, you know?
Yeah, and even I've noticed one of the challenges with play-by-play is I think for most people, again, subconsciously, I don't think people actively choose to tune out women's voices. But if you're at a certain pitch, it's really hard to get people to come with you. And when you're building energy for a play or an exciting moment, it's really easy to turn up the volume. And I think it's very different for a man than it is for a woman because we have that different sound. Yeah. So it's finding that balance of how can I be excited and portray what's happening in this moment, but also do it be even keel and deliver it with packing a punch, but still speaking from my diaphragm. I think for women, we really have to focus on speaking from our diaphragm when we're on camera. So it's those subtle differences where, you know, it does go a long way. And some of those have been subconscious things that I think fans have in their minds as they watch TV and sports. But you have to be mindful of those things, even the way you dress or do your hair and makeup. It's something, unfortunately, you have to be ready for. But I mean, it's also kind of part of being in the industry at this time.
Oh, yeah, 100%. How have you handled, I guess, you talked about that text that your family members sent you, but I mean, people are commenting on things, people are tweeting things, commenting on your Instagram. How do you handle those comments? Do you read them? Do you ignore them? How are you kind of, I mean, there's a lot of social media exposure.
Yeah. So I want to say to each their own in this sense, because most people would say I'm not setting a good example by saying I read everything. Yeah. But for me personally, in my experience, this is not the same with everyone else. There's actually been, I don't want to say hidden advice, but a nasty comment. I'm like, actually, they have a good point. I shouldn't have said it that way. Or actually, you know, because it could be from, you know, a pronunciation of something or you just kind of feed out the negative. So every now and again for me, there has been good feedback in there when I sort through that. But I think in the most sense, Chicago has been so welcoming of me. I feel I don't necessarily have a lot of negative comments on there. I think more so it's when I'm in these spaces, fans may have a few things to drink and say something that's a little out of pocket. And you're like, okay, well, you know.
Maybe you should go sit down. Leave me alone.
So I think more it's in person for me rather than online. And honestly, I don't post as much as I should. So that's something that I need to work on and do. Yes. But again, probably not advice to take. Some people say, you know, don't read those comments. But you know, I know that they're just angry to be angry or they're just being picky to be picky. So
how do you think going through college as a female athlete kind of helped you shape the way you view sports in general going into this career?
Yeah, I think the number one thing would be sacrifices, and obviously sacrifice with what you're doing in the weight room, conditioning, practices, your personal life and everything. But a moment that was defining for me, so I actually didn't complete 4 years playing softball for my university.
Okay.
I remember it was my first TV opportunity, and I went and talked to the coaching staff, and this is not any negative thing to them, but I asked them, I said, hey, I understand we have a team bonding experience that day. Is it okay if I leave an hour or two early to go and do this? And they said no. And I understand that team bonding is so important, but for me in my career, I'm like, that would be my first time on TV. That's huge. So it was hard to have internships or do those different things with those commitments. And that's not the same at every school. And I respect team bonding. I think it's so important. That is not a diss to the coaching staff. No. But it was a sacrifice I had to make for a sport that I loved so much that maybe I need to put this on the back burner to pursue this career. And that's ultimately what I ended up doing. But my experience in the sport has equipped me to just have that mindset as a former athlete for the sacrifices that you make or the preparation that you do. Even with what I was saying, having that year where I was struggling with my personal health, making sure that I go back to eating right, drinking water. So I'd say that sacrifice is probably the major word for that for me.
Yeah. I know we talked a little bit about comparison and not comparing yourself to those broadcasters that have been in the industry forever. But what about people that are kind of in your graduating class and girls that you're meeting that are around your age that are doing the same thing as you? You're not competing with them, but oftentimes you could be going up with the same roles as them. Or how do you handle that? Because that can be difficult, especially when you're younger.
No, it definitely is difficult. And I think where I was going to a small private school that wasn't necessarily known for media at the time really helped me, because I imagine if I was at a school like Michigan State, that is where a lot of broadcasters go in my area, I think I would have been so intimidated by how much experience that some of these other students had in high school compared to me. I had zip in high school, and I was even intimidated when we had one of our first orientations within MediaCom, and we were sitting and having dinner, and there were classmates of mine where she did some of this in high school or he did some play-by-play, and I just thought, I haven't done anything.
I didn't do anything in high school either. It was not even, I decided I wanted to do sports broadcasting when I stepped foot on Indiana for the first time, so I didn't even know I wanted to do that in high school. But I had no journalism experience, didn't really have any writing experience, and it's scary going into that.
It definitely is. And I think for me, where I've really grown is, we've talked about confidence. When I played softball, I think there were points in my life where I lacked that, where it would have been very beneficial for me to have. So, I had that mindset too when I was going into college, is I don't want to play scared like I used to. I want to attack life, or even just this career, classes, relationships, everything. So I think some of those experience I had in the past really helped equip me for that. But it was very intimidating. Again, a lot of my classmates were like far better than me on camera. And one of those was Lexi Ayala, who we talked about, and we're still really great friends. And it's just been so rewarding to be such good friends with somebody who's in the industry like you, like-minded, in the sense that they're never satisfied. They're going to work so hard, and to watch her career take off has just been so stellar, because I can't think of anybody who's more deserving.
She's awesome. Yeah, she's so cool. How do you've mentioned this never satisfying plot, I feel like, for women in sports and women in the broadcasting, and I agree with that. I think it's true. How do you kind of get yourself out of that roadblock and kind of change the narrative a little bit, look at it from a different point of view to kind of help, feel like you're satisfied and actually liking what you're doing right now?
So this is a very pay it forward industry, and I'm totally stealing quotes from other people and phrases that I've been given, but it's just helped me instrumentally. And one of those things is to be where your feet are, because it's so easy for us to get ahead of ourselves and say, I'm only doing this job because I want to get this job. And then you start thinking about the job ahead instead of killing the job that you have now. So it's one of those things where you are never satisfied, whether it be with how you are on camera, your delivery, or whatever aspect you're in media, or maybe it's just any career path that you're in that might not be inside of sports. But just really focusing on being present. And it's very simple to say, but it's another thing to actually do. It's very difficult. And, I think about my approach with in-arena hosting. It's something that I always wanted to do. I admired the women that were in that space for so long. And again, I envisioned it as a stepping stone. But once I embraced it and really focused on it, I never would have thought that not only do I get to be doing that in the NHL, I'm doing it in the NBA with a world-class organization, the Milwaukee Bucks, who put on one of the best shows around. And on top of that, too, now I get to be in women's professional sports, Athletes Unlimited softball, the Chicago Stars, and, get to grow with what I'm doing doing and also have the reporting and broadcasts.
Yes.
I'll do some stuff that'll be for Illinois State that'll be on marquee, like for football or basketball. So, you know, I let myself be open to opportunities instead of defining my path.
Yeah.
And I think that just kind of goes hand in hand with never being satisfied. So it's a great trait to have, that you always want to strive and be better. But at the same time, I think you need to focus on what you're doing now and have fun with it. Because I think back to that summer all the time for USPBL. And I'm like, that was the best summer of my life. Yeah. That was so fun. I got to talk to the players. They were showing me different grips.
Yeah.
We were talking about, you know, angles they would take in the outfield. Like, it was just so fun to learn the game. And it's like, I'm never going to get that back.
Yeah.
So just enjoy that, because it is stressful when you're figuring out, you know, how are you going to pay rent, or how are you going to get groceries?
Yes.
What's the next thing for me? How long can I be in this specific role for? So I know that it's so much easier to say than actually do, but just try to make that a mental note for yourself.
Yeah. What is something that you wish you knew jumping into this industry right out of college that you want to tell graduates today?
It's tough because I think everybody knows that networking is key, right?
Yes.
So I want to be a little more creative in that sense.
Yeah.
We talked about diversifying income before, but really don't be shy to try different things that are similar. Again, being in the corporate world, I know people who may have full-time jobs with, you know, something in the finance world, but you're still doing things on camera, and you're still engaging, or you're script writing. And I think that that is so key, because again, there's nothing wrong with bartending. I did that too, hosting. Hosting like in the restaurant sense.
Yes.
I love in-arena hosting. But just trying something different too, because you never know where it will take you, the skill set that you have.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of these things in the corporate world, like I've had the opportunity to work some summits, and I got to travel across the U.S. and it was really cool to be a part of that, and just the experiences and memories that you have, and then being able to put it on a resume. And it's like, wow, so not only is she able to do basketball or hockey, but she's been in the corporate world. She's not shy to travel. You know, she's acted. Like, it's just really fun to see how those things build you into a better person when it comes to the career that you're choosing.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Like, so important.
And I think too, like, I know for me, it was very difficult. It could be different now, but for internships, sometimes they weren't paid. Or there are things with, I don't want to do this job because I'm not being paid what I feel I deserve.
Yeah.
And that is a fair argument, and I do understand that. But I think at the same time, it's the sacrifices that you have to make outside of that element, you know? So don't be shy to do reps on your own and stuff if you are unable to get paid. Again, I know it's really hard, and I came from a place of privilege where I was able to live with my parents when I graduated. Not everybody got to do that, but just something to keep in mind. Yeah,
no, absolutely. If you could go back and tell either high school Genna or college Genna something, what would it be?
Wear your retainers. I had to go get Invisalign.
Oh, that's something you need to tell me, actually.
I know. Yeah. I actually just got my Invisalign off with Delicate Smiles. They're in Wisconsin. They're awesome.
Your teeth look beautiful.
Thank you.
Of course.
Go visit them if you need them.
Yes.
That's just like a joking thing I would say to myself.
No, like Josie also needs to know that. So I appreciate that advice.
Yeah, no. So that's just like a fun little thing.
Yeah.
But I would definitely tell myself that you're doing the right thing. Yeah. Because I think there's a lot of nights that you stay up and you question, is this industry even for me? This feels so hard. I want to give up. I want to try something different. Just that vote of confidence that what you did, it doesn't feel like it's going to pan out now, but in the future, you built yourself an amazing life. And even with me taking that risk and going to Chicago, I never would have met my fiance, Jordan, if I didn't do that. And so I wouldn't change a single thing about my life. And obviously I would, you know, if I give advice, I'd be like, you know, this is something I wish I did, but at the end of the day, I'm grateful I didn't because I get to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're kind of wrapping things up now, but how do you stay fierce in your field? Just staying confident. I know it's so corny, but I have to ask it every time because it's so important. I feel like.
I'm only laughing because I was thinking of that in the car right here. I'm like, okay, I know that's her question, and it's funny because when I think of myself, I don't describe myself as a fierce person. Yes. And I think that, you know, what we do, we do embody that. Like, I joke around, like, I feel like Hannah Montana whenever I go out and, you know, do, like, hosting or broadcasting because then I go home and, like, slum it in my sweats. Oh, yeah. But I think staying authentic And I know that that's such a cliche thing, but one of the major compliments that I get when I'm hosting, no matter where I am, is that I'm so personable and that I'm approachable. And I think what I wear really helps with that, because I'm normally like representing the hoodies, or it's fun when merch comes up to me and they're like, we just sold 15 units of XYZ that you wore tonight. And I'm like, oh, that's so great.
Oh, I love it.
But being comfortable, and also, you know, there's nothing wrong with getting glammed. Like when you're on TV, you're looking good, you're looking great. But in that sense where, you know, I do think some arena hosts definitely do glam it up. It's just fun that the way that I present myself and my aura with inviting people to come hang out. So if you guys are ever at a game, come hang out with us in 312.
Yes.
Because it like makes me tear up with how many fans come and actually visit us during a game. And, you know, security will like compliment us on that. And we want to foster that environment where, yes, you do have access to us and you are a part of the show. You are the heart that keeps us beating. And even like John had a baby this year. Aww. And, you know, I am getting married soon. But our fans that hang out in that section, they threw me a bridal shower and they threw him a baby shower. And it's just like, that does not happen in our industry if you are not building these relationships. Again, a lot of these people are my friends, so I tear up when I think about that moment. But like your authenticity and how you present yourself and the conversations that you have go a long way. So for me, just like being personable and having a good time, that's how I stay fierce.
How special is that to have fans of the Hawks do that for you? That's so amazing.
Yes.
Okay, well, Genna, this has been so much fun. I am so happy you're able to make it in studio today. And you're still here for the rest of the day, right, in Chicago?
I am, yes. Yeah. We're doing a panel where I'm also going to be talking about this, so this was awesome.
Oh, this is like your prep. I love it.
Thank you.
Of course. Do you want to shout out your socials or anything for people to follow?
Oh, gosh, sure. Like I said, I need to post on them more, but at Genna Rose TV, I'm Genna with a G. I know it throws everybody off a little bit. But will I be Genna St. Jean? I don't know. New last name. We'll find out.
That's exciting.
Genna Rose TV for now.
I love it. Okay. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Everyone go follow Genna. She is amazing. And I'll see everyone soon. Bye.